Hey everyone, and welcome to another Synced Up Designs Movement Basics video. My name is Kyle, and in this one, we're going to be introducing our next traveling basic, which is going to be prances. Prances are an essential skill to have whenever it comes to anything related to jumps, or really anything that involves you pushing your feet off of the ground. Now, real quick, if you could go leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel to join our community, that would be awesome. And if you want to be updated with any future posts we make, go ahead and hit that bell icon down below as well. Anyways, with that taken care of, let's go work on our prances. So like I said earlier, prances are a super important foundational skill that'll ultimately help us execute larger jumps. Prances are gonna help build up the strength in your ankles and your calves, as well as properly warm up your ankles and joints in your feet before you go in to try and execute larger jumps. If I was to do those without having properly warmed up my feet prior, that could lead to some complications such as injuries or other things that we really just want to avoid, and prances are gonna be the best tool for that. When it comes to doing a prance, essentially what you're doing is alternating between a flex foot position and a pointed foot position as you alternate transferring weight between one foot to the other. So there's an idea of weight transfer as you're jumping up and down and as you're traveling. In this video, we're first going to break down how to execute a prance in place, breaking down the articulation and shaping of the feet, and then we'll backtrack to go over how you'll do that while traveling. So before we actually get into jumping, let's first go over some of the feet shaping that we're going to see and some exercises we can do to kind of work this shaping. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with your feet in parallel. And when we do prances all together, you're going to be in a parallel shaping. So focus on your toes facing forward the entire time. So first what I want you to do is I want you to pick whichever leg you want to do first, and I want you to lift the heel off the ground, bending that knee and pressing the toes into the floor. Really trying to articulate as much as you can. That's not just a soft demi point, but a full demi point, really trying to activate the muscles in those toes. Once you have this position, I want you to push up into a releve on both feet and then alternate, placing the heel of that first leg down and then pressing the heel of the other leg up. And then just take a second to alternate between these as you go through so you can feel the activation of your toes as well as your ankle joint. This is causing our ankle to push through that point and flex position without having to activate our toes, so we can just really feel that kind of idea in the ankle. Once you've done that a few times, I want you to add a soft plie in the base leg whenever you place that heel down. So plie and then plie. Whenever you do any sort of jump, and prances are jumps, you always want to make sure that you land that jump in a plie position, leading toe ball, heel, and then plie, so you can soften the landing to make sure that it's not causing any injuries or pain in your knees. So alternating between those ankles and adding that soft plie at the bottom to get the initial idea of how our ankles should feel. The next thing I want to work on is going to be the activation of our toes. When we're doing a prance, we are not simply lifting our foot off the ground, but we're actively pushing our foot off the ground to go into a jump. So I want to talk about how we can activate the correct muscles for that. So we were just working our ankles, passing through each of these releves and adding that soft plie. Now I want to work the toes, and that's going to be the thing that helps us articulate through that push at the very end. So pick your leg and find that first demi point position, and instead of pushing through and alternating the feet, I actually just want you to think about engaging the toes and pushing the floor away and then pressing it back down. So working through that flexed standing position, going to your demi point, pushing into a full point, and then reversing that to feel the difference in those positions. What this causes us to do is make sure that we are not just lifting our foot off the ground, but actively pushing it away from the floor. And the difference that you can see with that is when I push the floor away, my entire foot activates and I am creating that full pointed shape. But if I just lifted that foot off the ground, I may activate my toes a little bit, but you can see a difference in energy when it comes to my point. So we want to make sure we're really engaging that as much as possible. Once you've done a few of those reps with one foot, alternate on the other foot so you can feel the activation of those toes. And with that, now we have an exercise that helps warm up the ankles in the positions that they need to be in, and an exercise that helps us warm up the toes. Now we're gonna move into adding a jump into the prance while we stay in place to work the alternating of weight transfer. So whenever we're doing prances, whether it's in place or going across the floor, whichever foot is on the ground is going to be a flex foot in the plie, and whichever foot is off the ground is going to be in a coupe shaping. So we're really not thinking about pulling that foot back or lifting that knee super high. It's just gonna be nice and close to my other foot. So we're gonna start with one foot in a parallel coupe next to the base foot. And what we're gonna do is we're going to jump off of our base foot, jump onto the other foot, and then pull that base foot up into a coupe position to alternate through. Notice that when I do that, I am pushing the floor away with the base foot, and then I'm articulating the toe ball heel of the landing of the other foot. Once you feel that out a little bit, you can continue then where you are alternating through that position, pushing off the floor. Take a second just to feel the weight transfer, and as you get better at that, you can add a little bit more height, because the ultimate goal is to get off of the ground with this. So think of pushing the floor away so we can see the articulation of the feet as you go through that. Again, remember, we are not lifting the knees high in front of us where it's like a high knee exercise, and we're also not doing butt kicks. So make sure that you're avoiding that and keeping the feet nice and low underneath you, passing through those coupe positions. So now we're gonna take the exercises that we just worked on and we're gonna apply them to a traveling idea. Essentially, you're going to do the exact same thing you just did, but you're going to send your energy forward in the direction you would like to go, leading with whichever foot you wanna lead with, and pushing off that foot to travel forward as you alternate that weight transfer going across the floor. Biggest thing with this is to remember that you are trying to find those coupe shapings underneath as you go through and not reaching with the foot as much. Although this is a traveling exercise, your goal is not to get across the floor as fast as possible. Your goal is to be moving while you're doing this, but you're not traveling super far in a short amount of time. What you are doing though is getting a lot of height. So instead of just doing prances in this low space and kind of a neutral space, you wanna think about pushing off your feet as much as you can, getting some height so you can really activate the joints in the ankle and make sure that you're properly warming it up and strengthening it over time. Really make sure that as you do that though, that when you place that base foot on the ground, you need to get all the way to a plie position with the heel on the ground. A tendency for some people is to do this and not put the heel all the way on the ground, and that could cause some injury. So just be careful not to do that and actively push all the way to that plie, softening in the joint, and then alternating again. The hard part is gonna be doing that quickly as you alternate between the feet on every count. Now, something I want to make sure I emphasize is going to be the shaping of your feet and your legs as you travel across the floor. I've already mentioned before that you want to avoid lifting your foot off the ground, leading with the knee, kind of doing high knees. You also want to avoid kicking back behind you as if you're doing butt kicks. So you want to make sure that you do that as you apply the traveling as well. Because the tendency is you're going to want to find a way to pull your energy forward, and instead of just pushing off of the ground to get in the air and move forward, you're going to think about kicking back, or you're going to think about your leg pulling you forward. So just be aware that your traveling prances don't look like this or this. Yeah, keep it underneath you while you still travel forward. Along with that, I have also brushed on this, but you really want to make sure that you're alternating the shape and really showcasing the shaping of your feet in either that pointed position or the flex position on the ground. Yeah, we mentioned we don't want to land on the ground with our heel off the floor. We also want to make sure that we're not picking up our feet and not articulating into that full point. And remember, the exercise we did at the beginning of this video was articulating through those toes to push off the ground as opposed to lift off the ground. And that's gonna be the difference. If you really push, you're gonna find a lot more energy and you'll find a lot more height while also creating the shaping in the feet. The last thing I want to cover is going to be the overall look and feel that'll happen as you start to master this skill. First thing is going to be your upper body stays still. There may be a soft sway in the arms, and that's okay. Don't feel like it has to be super stiff, but be careful that you're not thinking of like pumping your arms and not allowing your body to sway side to side. Especially as you alternate your feet, your tendency is going to want to be to lean towards that leg, but you want to keep this neutral as you alternate through those prances. Prances. So keeping this still, not stiff, still, as well as relaxed arms that don't do a lot of movement. Along with that, a lot of people like to use the analogy of a paintbrush when it comes to prances. This idea of as you're articulating through the feet, it's not just hit a shape, but move through a shape. Yeah, finding the heel, ball, toe, toe, ball, heel, and it creates that sort of paintbrush effect. Up, articulate, down, articulate. So just a quick demo of what that looks like going across the floor. Smooth connection of the prance. Yeah, still hitting those shapes, but thinking about a fluid motion as opposed to hit, hit, hit is going to be the difference of just knowing the skill and mastering the skill. So finishing off this video today, I want to review everything we did in terms of prances. We first started by talking about what a prance was and why it was important, making sure that we understood the fact that it is a skill that helps us warm up our ankles and strengthen our feet and calves over time to ensure that we are properly preparing ourselves for bigger jumps. Afterwards, we went over some of the breakdown skills and techniques that we can use to warm up our feet for prances and kind of understand the proper usage and shaping that we go through. The first one being pushing through each of the demi points to work our ankles, and then the second one being pushing off of the toes to articulate the point of the foot, pushing off the ground. Once we learned those two exercises, we did prances in place, alternating between feet, adding the jump in the middle to make sure that we feel that weight transfer as we work through that flexed foot and pointed foot position. And then once we got a better understanding of that, we moved into doing prances while traveling. Once we learned all of those things, we moved into some of the things you want to be aware of and make sure that you avoid as you go through prances. The first one is making sure that you keep your feet underneath you in that coupe shaping and not allowing the foot to lead in a high knee position or kick back in a butt kick position, making sure we just focus on the coupe shaping. Along with that, we also talked about making sure that you are actively fighting for the flex shaping, pressing the heel to the ground, or the full pointed shaping and making sure not to land on a foot with the heel still off the ground. Lastly, we talked about the final details that you need to master the skill, which one is going to be keeping your upper body still, not stiff, but still, nice and relaxed and something that doesn't get compromised by the weight transfer. And then we also talked about the analogy of the paintbrush. Although we are articulating between a pointed foot and a flexed foot, we don't want it to be a sharp movement. We want it to be a fluid movement as we go through, so we see a little bit more articulation and control of those feet. And there you have it. That was our intro video on how to do prances. Like I said earlier, this is an extremely, extremely important skill to have in terms of preparing us for larger jumps. So it's really important that you make sure that you understand it at a deep level. So make sure that if you have any questions at all, that you go down in the comment section below and we'll be there to help you guys out. If you also found this video helpful, please consider leaving a like, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Happy dancing.